Well, I hate to admit it, but I am a serial proof texter. It all began when I was a child, and I would pull tracts off the tract rack and read the arguments about various topics. I would see all these scriptures listed out to defend a certain point, and I believe that was really the way to study the scriptures. I took that with me into my high school years, debating people from various denominations, and I would take the same approach, just listing out scriptures to prove my point, because that's what those who were ahead of me, those more mature than I was, those who knew more than I did, that was their approach. And so I thought that was perfectly adequate. Whether or not that scripture had anything to do with the point I was making, I really didn't know. And so I bought a Strong's Concordance. And I would look up different topics, I would look up different words, and begin to find support for what it is that I believed to win the arguments that I was having with my Baptist friends. I took that same approach with me into college, only this time I was now armed with an NIV Zondervan Exhaustive Concordance, one of those black Kostenberger, I think, or Kohlenberger, one of those burgers, concordances. And my first roommate in college was a Baptist, and we had Introduction to the New Testament Bible class together with Dr. Dale Manor. So we would come back after hearing things in Bible class, and we would debate, we would argue, we would discuss things, and both of us were introverted and liked to be in the room, so it was a little bit awkward. And I remember trying to prove points. I remember looking up specifically the word doctrine. He said doctrine wasn't important, so I was going to show him that the word doctrine was in the Bible, that it just meant teaching. And on we went, round and around, and I can remember looking up words from the concordance, proof texting them, and I remember, and I don't remember the specific topic, but I can remember finding verses that supported his view in those little snippets that they give you of the I call it context. It's like 5 words around a word. That's not really context. Context is the argument that's being made. And I remember not bringing up the verses that agreed with my opposition, skipping them. And I figured that that was okay because they didn't make the point I was making and my point was right. So those verses obviously couldn't be against what I was saying because I knew the truth and he didn't. So I would skip the verses in the concordance that supported his positions, and I wouldn't take time to consider that maybe my position needed to be challenged. And then I would present him with just those few verses that seemed to say what it is I was trying to get him to believe. Now, some of those things I still believe. Some of those things have stood up to contextual study, but my confession is that I was not fair with the text. I was an abuser of the text. I did not treat it fairly. I conformed it to my will. I bent it to my preconceived ideas and conclusions, and I ignored it. I was not a good listener. I did not consider what the Bible, God through the scriptures, was trying to tell me. And it took me several more years, probably 6 more years, before I really understood that the Bible is trying to teach me things and challenge my positions, and that I'm supposed to go to the Bible to hear what the Bible is saying, not go to the Bible to just make it say what I believe. Now, there are times when the Bible confirms what I believe, and those things align, and that's good. There are also times that the Bible challenges what I believe, and I need to study harder to understand the difference. So this is my confession. I was a Bible abuser. I was a serial proof texter, and I used the Bible, I weaponized the Bible, is my confession, to beat up people who I disagreed with, and to conform them not into the image of Christ, but into the image of myself. Maybe you can relate with that, maybe you can't, but this is the life that I lived, and I now understand just how problematic that is, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry to those I hurt, and I'm sorry to those who, especially to God, who I was not listening to. And I don't want to continue to pass on that example to other people. So this is my confession. take it for what it's worth.